Hi everyone, it's Gina K from Gina K Designs and your host of Stamp TV. And today on Stamp TV, I have a fun holiday project for you featuring the new Merry Bright StampTV Kit. For this card, let me show you the tools and products you're going to need. You're going to need some ink, and the inks that I'm using are the Gina K Designs Grass Green and Red Velvet, and I'm also going to be using some Versamark ink. Along with the Versamark ink, I'm going to use an embossing magic pad, and I'm going to be using a heat tool. I'm also going to be using some cardstock, and the cardstock I've chosen here is some grass green. I'm also going to be using some white. This is the layering weight white, some red velvet, and then I have some of the Gina K Designs silver cardstock. And that's a real pretty cardstock. I'm going to be using some stamps from the Merry Bright kit. I'm going to be using the poinsettia flowers and leaves. I'm also going to use this circle, so the flowers and this little circle. And then I'm going to also be using some greetings from this set, from the Seasonal Sentiments. I'm going to be using Wishing You A, and then I'm going to use Happy. So I'm going to combine those to make one greeting. I'm also going to use the Tim Holtz craft pick. You can use any pick or pin to help you get the words out of your dies. You can see here there's little holes that are built into these dies to easily pop the greeting out. I also have my Misty stamping tool, and I have some acrylic blocks and a bunch of dies from the Merry Bright kit. So to get started, I'm going to need a piece of white cardstock. And I'm going to just put this white cardstock into my Misty and just kind of secure everything there. And then I'm going to grab the 2 poinsettia flowers. Now when I make cards like this, I like to mass produce. I like to make a whole bunch of flowers all at once and then cut them and then just have them on standby for future card projects. So you might as well use up all of this cardstock stamping out these flowers. All right, so put that piece of cardstock back down here. And then I'm going to ink these up using the red velvet. And the cool thing about the Misty is you can add a second layer of color if you want to darken it up a bit. So if it doesn't look dark enough for you, or there's something that just doesn't look like it's completely transferred, you can do it a second time. So I'm going to put some pressure on these poinsettias. You can see I'm going to go back in with a second layer of color and stamp them again. There we go. So that brightened everything up and made it a little bit deeper. And now I'm just going to flip this piece of cardstock around. I'm just going to check my flowers and make sure they're not overlapping, and they're not. So I'm going to do it again. And this will give me 4 flowers ready to use on my project. I'm only going to use 3, but I'll keep that other one and keep collecting them, and then I'll have enough for another project. So you can see that's a lighter red than when you add that second layer. Both are very pretty. The red velvet is an awesome red color for the holidays. But it is fun to add that second layer. All right, so now we have all of those vibrant, bold poinsettia flowers. Okay, so I'm going to put this aside because the next thing I'm going to do is grab these leaves. And these are very easy to stamp out. So I'm going to grab this acrylic block and just put both of the leaves onto the acrylic block. And then I'm going to grab another piece of white cardstock and some of the grass green ink. And I'm going to stamp a whole bunch of these out. And like I said, use the whole piece of cardstock. You might as well. See if you can get a couple more. So now I have all these leaves ready to go. And of course, I'm not going to use them all now, but they'll be perfect for future projects. Okay, and then I'm going to remove these leaves, get them back on my stamp block or stamp sheet, and I'm going to use this tiny little circle, and I'm going to bring those poinsettias back. Now these have had a chance to dry, and I'm going to use the embossing magic pad all over them. And then I'm going to grab some, let's get rid of that, grab a little bit of Versamark here. I'm going to ink that up, and I'm going to stamp the center of each of these because I want my embossing powder that I'm going to use for the greeting and my silver cardstock that I'm going to use for the greeting, I'm sorry, my gold cardstock that I'm going to use for the greeting, I want that to all coordinate with these flowers. So by adding a little bit of color, a little bit of metallic color in the center, that allows me to tie it all in. So I'm going to grab this piece of cardstock, and I'm going to sprinkle that just over those little centers. Just like that. Now I know you can still see the little dots that are underneath there, and that's fine because once you emboss that, it's going to get solid and you're not going to see that at all. So any little excess that's on there you can brush off, or if you don't want to, it just adds a little bit of sparkle to your poinsettia and it actually looks very pretty. So it's totally up to you if you want to leave it or you want to brush it off. I'm going to brush it off, but on my card sample there is a little bit of that on there and I thought it looked pretty, so I'll be showing you that in just a second. Okay, so now I'm going to put this embossing powder back for now, and I'm going to emboss the centers of these flowers. It's always a good idea to let your heat tool heat up just a little bit. Makes the embossing go a little bit faster. And you can see that they turn solid. So that's a totally different fun look. Isn't that fun? Those centers. Okay. So now I'm going to grab this little piece of grass green cardstock and I'm going to use the embossing magic pad all over that. And then I'm going to find those little greetings that I want to use, and I'm going to put them on this block. So I'm going to use wishing you a happy. All right, so wishing you a happy. I'm going to just press them right up against each other. Make sure they look good. I could move that happy over just a little bit. There we go. And I want to make sure that fits on there, and it certainly does. So now I'm going to grab this Versamark pad, and I'm going to ink up this little combination of words. And I'm going to stamp that. I'm going to have to get my head in the way here for a second because I do want to make sure it's straight. Wishing you a happy. Okay. So now I'm going to sprinkle some of that embossing powder on there. Got a little clothespin to make it easy to work with. Okay, and that is ready to emboss. And then the clothespin helps because this is a very small little piece of paper and you want to be careful not to burn yourself. You can see, there we go, wishing you a happy. All right, I'll put that aside. Okay. So now my next step is going to be to do a little bit of die cutting. So let me grab all my dies that I want to use. I want to cut my flowers, my leaves, and then I want to cut out the word holiday. And I have some gold, I'm really close up here. I have some gold cardstock here. So I'm going to cut a little piece out for my little word. I have a silver one here as my little guide, so I'm going to cut this out to, let's see, this is going to be 1 5/8 by 5/8. So first let me cut it in half, and then I can use the other half as a card base if I want. Okay, so I'm going to go to 1 5/8. So that's 1 1/2, and then another 1/8 of an inch over. 1 5/8. Actually, that's the same size as this, I believe, right? Okay. So let's see what this is supposed to be. All right, so I'm going to go, oh, it is 1 5/8. I just didn't look at it correctly. So 1 5/8. And all of these measurements will be underneath the screen at Stamp TV and also on YouTube. So you won't have to worry about trying to figure out what I'm doing here. I will have it all laid out for you. So let's see how this looks. That looks pretty cute. All right, so I'm going to leave that like that. And now we're going to do some die cutting. So I'm going to grab my Big Shot and I'm going to cut out these flowers and these leaves. Now, it's not always easy to figure out exactly where the flowers should go, so you just have to turn them as you go. And then what I like to do is I like to use a little bit of washi tape just to hold it down. This way I know it's going to cut out nicely. So I'll just put some washi tape there. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. Find that right spot. Normally I mark them with a Sharpie so that it's the same, the top of the stamp and the top of the die match, so I know when I stamp it a certain way that I know exactly where to go with the die. But I didn't do that on these yet, even though I always recommend it. I've been a little lazy with this. Okay, so now I'm going to cut these out. You can do 2 at a time. And you can see how nicely these dies cut. Now I have a whole pile of them over here ready to go, so I don't have to cut any more. I just wanted to show you how you would cut them out. And you can see how the ink dries even smoother once it's all dry. It's just beautiful. And then I also have a whole bunch of leaves already pre-cut, so I don't have to cut those either. So I'll save these for another project. But one thing I do need to cut is I need to cut my greeting. So I'm going to grab a piece of this gold cardstock and I'm going to slip my holiday greeting underneath the cardstock blade side up. And then I'm going to put my plate on top, and then I'm going to use another piece of cardstock, just a little scrap, something that I really don't need, just as a shim to tighten it up a little bit, because this is a very delicate word. And I'm going to go forward, and I'm going to go backwards just a couple times, forward and backward, just to make sure it all cut out. I'll take a look at that, and that's looking pretty good. You can see that it just fell right out. So now I'm going to use my craft pick, and I'm going to just push it out of the holes like that, and it falls right out. It's a really nice die. And there's all the, so there is, put that up against something that you can see it a little better. There is the holiday cut out with gold cardstock. Now if you don't have gold cardstock, you can cut it out with white cardstock, and then you can dip the whole thing, pat the whole thing with Versamark, and then you can emboss it to match the other gold parts of your card. Okay, so now I'm going to grab all my little pieces here of my card. I have all my flowers and leaves. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a decorative background on one of the pieces of cardstock before we assemble the card. So I'm going to grab my Scor-Buddy, and I'm going to grab the red piece of cardstock, and I'm going to find the 3-inch mark, and then using my tool I'm going to go down to the bottom here and just hold it in place. You can always mark it too with a little Sharpie dot if you want. So you can see I've got one corner up at the 3-inch mark at the top and one corner at the 3-inch mark at the bottom. And I'm going to just do 1/4-inch lines going all the way down this piece of cardstock, creating an angled striped pattern. Once I get to there, I'm going to turn it, and again, make sure I have the right line. And I'm going to finish that off on the other side. Now this is kind of a fun pattern just by itself, that kind of angled stripe. It's very elegant. But I'm going to do a crisscross. So again, I'm going to find that 3-inch mark, make sure my corners line up, and then I'm going to go in the opposite direction. And if you don't have any embossing folders and you have something that you can score with, you can create these same kind of elegant backgrounds. Depending on, whether you go 1/4 of an inch or a 1/2 inch, it's going to look different. You can go straight up and down. You can go on an angle like I'm doing. And you can create lots of fun texture for your card projects without even having embossing folders. So there is my diamond pattern that I created. Okay, so now it's time to assemble this card. I'm going to adhere my red velvet piece to my white layer to give it that nice little border. All right, and then this whole panel is going to go on top of my grass green card base. And then I'm going to adhere my little grass green panel to my gold piece. And I'm going to pop that onto my card right about here. Now I'm going to lay out my flowers and see how I want them to look. So I want to do 2 small ones on either side, and I'm going to pop those up using some of the foam squares. Put one there, and put one over here. And then I'll put the big one right in the center between them. Like that. And then I'm going to slip a bunch of leaves underneath. So I'll put one here. I'll put one down here. And you can use big and small. I have a lot of different ones here. Put this one up here. Maybe I'll use a bigger one for down here. You can mix and match however you want them to look. I'll put one under here, and I'll put another big one down here. And I'll put one up there too, just to make it a little bit different. Just one up here. Okay. And then I have this holiday greeting, and you can apply these greetings a variety of different ways. You can use, you can actually put double-sided sticky tape on top of it first before you cut it. I'm going to move this piece up a bit though. Or you can use a quickie glue pen, which I've done in the past. Just to save some time, I'm going to add a little bit of tape runner on here. It's not the easiest way to do it, but it will be effective. Okay. And now I'm going to just lay this piece right in here. And remember, you can, with these, you can turn them, you can curve them, you can do anything you want with them. But there is my finished card. Now I want to show you another one. I did another version of this same card, but I did it with silver parts instead of gold parts. So this one is all silver. I don't know which one you like better there, the gold or the silver. I kind of like them both. Probably do a variety of them. And then I made one that I really love, and this one is a Hanukkah card. So I decided to do it with all blues because blue and silver are the colors for Hanukkah, and poinsettias are secular, so they really don't have a holiday, and you can make them any color you want. You could make white poinsettias, you can make, if you wanted to emboss them in white on blue and then cut them out, you could do that. I like this. I used powder blue and the blue denim mix, and I used the silver. And when I cut out Hanukkah, then I curved it around to kind of go around the flowers at the top. So that is another option. Let's put these two together here so you can see them. So those are my finished card projects. I hope you've enjoyed today's Stamp TV video. Stay tuned to Stamp TV for more projects featuring the brand new Merry Bright StampTV Kit. And thank you so much for watching.